Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
January 1st, 2025 is the first recording of the new year. It's the second episode of the new year, but the first recording of The Pint, a pop culture podcast. My name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're here to talk about something dark, something sinister, something like I've never seen before. That's right. We're here to talk about Lily Rose Depp's nipple to breast ratio.
Oh.
Just kidding. We're here to talk about 2024's remake of Nosferatu. Let's get into it.
Want to ring the bell?
All right. Ding, ding.
We are jumping right in.
Right in.
January 1st. We've never recorded
No.
on January 1st before.
I'm usually not off. I had today off. So I figured, why don't we get this done? Give me a little time to edit it for next week. It's a nice thing. It's a good thing.
It's also 11 o'clock in the morning.
It is. Yeah. But you don't usually do matinees either. This is a whole.
Yeah, right. It's a matinee, but probably not PG. So
no, it's not going to be PG. I already mentioned nipples for fuck's sake. So
all right, Nosferatu, released on 12/25, Christmas Day, 2024. Last year.
Fuck you. Last year. You're gone.
Last year.
Let's go to 2025.
Written and directed by Robert Eggers. Born in New York City, but raised most of his life in New Hampshire. So he's a New Englander. And you could kind of tell that in his movies, I think. Previous to his directing and writing, he was a production designer for a lot of shorts and documentaries and stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah. His first one was The Vivitch, 2015. Also did The Lighthouse in 2019 and then The Northman a couple of years ago. I saw The Witch. I wasn't a big fan, and I haven't seen the other two, but I've heard The Northman is good.
I love The Witch. I have not seen The Northman, and The Lighthouse is fucking weird. The Lighthouse is super fucking weird. I feel like I might watch it again at some point, but there's a lot of farting in it, and I mean that literally. I'm not joking. The movie's about Willem Dafoe's farting.
That's funny.
Very odd.
I might go back and watch The Witch. I just there was something about it that turned me off when I watched it. Maybe it was a mood I was in. Cinematographer, because this thing really deserves a little credit for that. Yaron Blaschke, and unfortunately I didn't dive deep on him, but basically the film was shot in color, but it doesn't look like it, right?
Yeah,
it looks like a very dull, not really washed out, but just dull and dark.
Desaturated might be
desaturated. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
Based on it's based on a layer of things. The 1922 original Nosferatu silent movie with a script by Henrik Galeen and directed by F.W. Murnau. That was based on the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker, which was loosely based on a character, Vlad the Impaler. So a little a history lesson about the 1922 movie. Murnau and his gang, his producers, wanted to make the Dracula film, but didn't want to pay royalties, because people are cheap. So they changed all the character names, and they changed some minor details of the story. The setting was changed from England to Germany. But other than that, basically it's the same premise.
Yeah.
And if you haven't in your cast notes, I have notes of who each character is.
I didn't, but I mean, I know the parallels, but yeah. And yeah, they got the fuck suit out of them, right?
Yeah, so they did. They got the fuck suit out. That's exactly what it says here. And then there is, it resulted in destroy all copies of the film kind of thing. But luckily, Some copies were not destroyed, and they were restored, and now we have these movies.
Yeah.
So that's good.
I've got to point out, I think it's important for this viewing that I've never seen the original, or I actually own the 1979
Shadow of the Vampire?
No, the remake. There's a Nosferatu remake.
Yeah,
I think it's Werner Herzog might have made it. I've seen Shadow of the Vampire, which is, which is a Willem Dafoe starring film where it's about the making of, but it also introduces the idea that the actual actor who played Nosferatu was a real vampire. Yeah.
I like that movie a lot. That was in my list. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Because we did do a vampire movie, a vampire list back in the day.
Back in the day we did. Yeah.
Yeah. In 2015, which was, I guess, would have been right after The Witch, Eggers was reported to, going to write and direct this film. But at that point, he's like, why should I be the guy to redo this movie? I've only made one movie. So he kind of put it aside for a while. And that was going to have Harry Styles and who else? I wrote Anna Taylor-Joy. Yeah,
well, she was in The Witch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. But they both dropped out in 2022. Then he made those other two movies, and then finally he comes back to this. And when he was making it, he felt like he was, his words, contaminated by cinematic tropes of vampires. So garlic, holy water, crucifix, mirrors, all that kind of stuff. And you're not going to find any of that in this movie.
No, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But
he purposely stayed away from all that stuff. I guess he dug a little deeper and I found this interesting. When he looked at some really early accounts of vampires and stories and stuff, they weren't drinking blood. They were strangling and suffocating and fucking people to death.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so we also have that in here. So he incorporated that into this film. Principal photography began in the Czech Republic in February of 2023 and wrapped in May. So that's pretty quick. They did it in studios in Prague, Barrandov Studios, and on location at several castles, none of which I'm going to try to pronounce because they all got dots over their
umlauts. Umlauts.
Yeah, crazy. So it's 14th century castles and stuff in Prague. But one I will say, the exterior of Count Orlok's castle was filmed at Corvin Castle in Transylvania, Romania. And that is one of the largest castles in Europe and also has a connection because Vlad the Impaler himself was actually imprisoned there at one point.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Interesting.
So, and then I'll go one more deep because I really enjoyed it. The score is from British-Irish film composer and music producer Robin Corlland. And, the movie's great. The sound of it is great. And while I was writing my notes, I seeked it out on, my music app, and it's fantastic just by itself. It's really, really good. A lot of movies, even though I like the music, when I listen to the score by itself, it's just sort of like not great.
Well, it's unattached from...
Yeah, because it's unattached. But this one, I don't know. There's something about it. It's really good. It's like melancholic and tragic, and it's just more, like drama kind of things. But it's really good. I loved it.
Admittedly, and it's not like it was bad, but I don't remember much of the score.
Yeah.
But I also was I was also in a movie theater where somebody in the movie theater, I think sitting next to me, was smoking weed. So I think I saw this movie on a contact high. I'm not sure. Was there a scene where me and Count fucking Orlok went into the lobby and got Twinkies and were like just eating a box of Twinkies, laughing together? Because that's what happened in the version I saw.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I actually, during the movie, I did have to go up and use the bathroom at one point. So
Me too.
I missed something in the middle, and I hate to admit it, but I did fall asleep a wee bit.
Me too. Me too. So I got up to go to the bathroom during the Nicholas Hoult being rescued by the nuns scene.
Yeah.
I couldn't hold it anymore. When I came back from the bathroom, I opened the door and it was like the weed smell was I felt like I was at an Aerosmith concert in 1979.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And then I drifted off a little bit to sleep at the end, to the point where the next day, so I saw this with Heather, and the next day I was telling her that I was reading the plot on Wikipedia the next day to kind of like just refresh myself for recording. And I told her, I said, you know how Wikipedia could be written by anybody? I'm like, they wrote this whole bit in that wasn't in the movie. And she's like, yeah, it was. And I'm like, oh, I'll tell you what bit it was later, but like, I did not see it at all. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I might have a couple lapses in memory myself.
It's a drowse-inducing movie, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but it's slow. It's
very deliberate pace.
And if you're already like somebody that like struggles to stay awake during like fireworks, then you're going to be in a little bit of trouble in this one. But yeah.
And I will mention that I do own the original, not the original movie, the Kino Lorber restoration of the original movie. I watched it last night. I've always liked it, and I'll have some very minor comparisons at the end, but I'm a big fan of Nosferatu.
I've always known, because I've like for years, like for Christmas gifts, I would get you like artist renditions, and
I should have brought it. I have it right in the room next door to me.
Yeah,
Michael Kelleher, beautiful sketch he did.
Yeah, and I think, did I have Rich Smith do one for you too? I think
Rich Smith, that was The Shining, which I actually watched the day before.
Okay, all right.
Oh, I got to show you some stuff I got for Christmas.
Anyway, I can't wait.
All right, so that's it for production. Who do we have in this glorious film?
Hey, who the fuck are you? Huh? Who the fuck are you?
All right, the cast as we know it starts off with Bill Skarsgård playing Count Orlok / Nosferatu, and also, if you want to go with Lloyd's thing, it's Dracula. Bill Skarsgård from Barbarian from a couple years ago. The mega flop remake of The Crow from last year, that I don't think anybody saw. And then probably most likely, It, Chapter 1 and 2, playing Pennywise. His appearance was such a tightly guarded secret that I truly could not find anything online. And my first viewing was in the theater, was as it came out. We'll get into that in a little bit. And funnily enough, I thought about this after too. His brother Alexander was the star of The Northman, so he's worked with two of the Skarsgårds.
In there. 6 hours of makeup, I heard.
Yeah, it's full body makeup for this one. Nicholas Hoult plays Thomas Hutter, who is Jonathan Harker, right? Is his name?
Yes, Harker.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he is a young, I guess, working in a law firm, young guy trying to make a name for himself. And he gets assigned to go to Transylvania to nail down a particular client. Renfield, which is funny. He was in a Dracula movie.
There's a couple of weird other tie-ins like that too.
Yeah. And Renfield, I like Renfield a lot. And also, the X-Men series of films, he plays, Beast, aka Henry McCoy. Lily Rose Depp, she of the gigantic nipples and small breasts, plays Ellen Hutter, the wife of Thomas Hutter, who is Mina Harker. Correct. In the original series. She is the woman who is, in every other version, at least in Dracula, they have different reasons for the connections, right? Like in Bram Stoker's Dracula, she is the reincarnated version of his wife from when he was like a warlord. And there's always some kind of connection. This one is really creepy. It's just like, she's a young girl that he kind of like, they just kind of come out and say it. Like
that's the first scene of the movie, right?
Yeah. He takes advantage of her at a weak point in her life, and then she is just kind of driven kind of mad. I was joking with Heather about this aspect of the movie, is that Nicholas Hoult, man, he's a good-looking dude. She's high maintenance. He could have just gone... honestly, there's a scene later in the movie where he gets rescued by nuns. I would have just stayed in the nunnery and started banging. I would have just started banging through all the nuns.
Just banging nuns.
Just not gone. I would not have gone back home, because she is just... There's a lot there, right?
Yeah.
Everybody kind of has a hard time dealing with her.
But she is every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll get it in the mail.
Yeah. You keep an eye out in the post. I'll write you every day. Yeah. So she is the daughter of Johnny Depp, who we did a whole month of, a couple September in 23. But in terms of movies and TV shows, Yoga Hosers, the Kevin Smith film, a movie called Crisis, I have no clue what that is, and a sci-fi movie called Voyagers from a few years ago that I'm kind of familiar with but never saw.
She was in Tusk, right? A little bit.
Yes, she had a cameo in Tusk as well. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Friedrich Harding. Now, I don't know who he is, because in the original Dracula, there's 3 suitors, but for Lucy, and in this, they're already married. So I don't know if he's supposed to be the cowboy or he's supposed to be...
Arthur Holmwood.
Arthur Holmwood. Okay. All right. Who was like the sophisticated fellow, I guess. You might know him from the Kick-Ass films, the Mega Bomb that's out right now competing or trying to compete with Nosferatu, Kraven the Hunter, and the upcoming 28 Years Later. He looks like he's the lead in that.
Did you see The Fall Guy? He was in that too.
Yes, I love The Fall Guy.
Yeah.
He was the douchebag.
He was the stunt doubles actor.
He was the actor. Yeah. Yep. Emma Corrin plays Anna Harding, who is Lucy Westenra in the original Dracula. She is in Deadpool and Wolverine. She's Cassandra Nova. She's the villain in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, okay.
Professor Xavier's twin or whatever. Television, she was on Pennyworth, the show about
wait a minute.
Pennyworth.
You said she. You
she.
meant they.
They, right.
They.
She is a they. I'm sorry.
She also played Princess Di. They also played Princess Di in The Crown.
You called her a she. On TV's The Crown, she was Princess Di. They were Princess Di. I don't like this. I'm going to be respectful.
So
I'm going to be respectful, but I don't like it. Willem Dafoe plays Professor Von Franz, who is Van Helsing. You know Willem Dafoe. Platoon. A couple months ago, we did Speed 2 Cruise Control. He is the villain in that. And The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. A couple more here. I got a couple more. Actually, funnily enough, on Wikipedia, this might be the first movie we've ever done where I read off everybody listed in Wikipedia. Like I got all the names. Like that's it, because there's not a lot of people in this movie. Yeah. So the next person is Ralph Ineson Sievers, who is the attending physician for Lily Rose Depp's character when she starts to have her fits.
I like that term, attending physician.
Attending physician. Yeah, that's what it is. He was on Game of Thrones. He was on The British Office.
Yep.
And he was also on a TV show that I keep hearing is really good, but like the name just like always deceives me. Peaky Blinders.
Yeah. Is Cillian Murphy in that?
Cillian Murphy is in that, yeah.
Yeah. And I've never seen it either. I've maybe seen one episode.
I'm assuming that's like British slang for something, like maybe I don't know, like a hot cup of clam chowder. I don't know.
Cheeky monkey?
Yeah, cheeky monkey. Peaky Blinders. Like, I don't know what that fucking means. And then finally, Simon McBurney plays Ernock. Ernock is the boss of Nicholas Holt's character. He also doubles, he is essentially Renfield in this. I don't think in any other Dracula version, there's that connection where Renfield is the boss who sends. Maybe it's in Nosferatu. I don't know.
In Nosferatu, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So they kind of combined some characters. He was in the Golden Compass movie. He was also in Robin Hood, the Ridley Scott one with Russell Crowe, and The Conjuring Part 2. All right, let's get into it. So we start off with the first scene is basically a scene of what is her name again? I keep forgetting her actual Ellen Hutter, kind of like being drawn out of her house in some kind of fog, some kind of trance, because she seems to be talking to an otherworldly
praying
voice.
To a spirit or something.
Yeah, she's like lonely. Yeah. She's praying to a spirit. If it was now, she would just be on Tinder, but instead she ends up on undead Tinder. And she ends up going outside and she's kind of writhing around in her garden. That's what British people call their yards, is the garden. Although they're German in this. She's laying there, and then she seems to be getting ravaged, and we get a quick glimpse of kind of almost looks like Jason Voorhees as a kid, like just this big kind of weird looking deformed dude, got his hand around her neck. She seems to be into it. And then she kind of goes into fits, and then that's it, right? Like that's kind of
really shaky, really nasty fit.
Yeah.
Boy, I saw this a week ago almost, right? So shit, I'm going to be forgetting details, but I need to see it again just to refresh. I'll buy it when it comes out.
It's essentially Dracula. Yeah. Yep. So we then get a card that tells us years later. And years later,
I don't know how many years.
But. Yeah, years. And she doesn't look like, she's still clearly a young woman.
Yeah, it seems like a couple years later.
Yeah. She's not a little girl in the first scene. She's actually even played by Lily Rose Depp. So it's probably like 16 to 24 or something. And she's living with her husband, Thomas Hutter, who is making it very clear that he's tired of being a fucking bum. Like he's got a job, but he's not like, he clearly has some kind of like envy of his friend, Friedrich, who is a like kind of a nobleman. There's a party scene where, like, a dinner scene where he tells him, like, you know, like, I'm hoping to someday be like you and all this stuff.
Yeah, that guy's a douche.
I don't think he was a douche.
No, yeah, you're right.
I don't think he was a douche. As a matter of fact, there's a scene, we'll jump ahead a little bit. There's a scene later on in the movie that I felt he was so right in. And it's a scene where, after all of the shenanigans that have been happening with Ellen, and he's let her stay in her house, and she keeps on doing crazy shit, where she's like, I know you never liked me. And he's like, like that scene where he just, hey, bitch, I've been putting up with your fucking shit while my buddy, who's your fucking boyfriend, is in fucking Transylvania. Yeah. Like, I was mad for him when she said that. I know she was also kind of out of her mind, but like she was kind of being a fucking ingrate. So Lloyd, what happens in terms of his job? His job tells him what? He's
looking to make a tidy sum, right? He needs to make some money. They're newly married, and you know, he just doesn't want to be a bum wishing he was something better. He accepts a commission from his boss, Knock, to sell a kind of rundown, decrepit state home in Wisborg. That's where they are, right? Wisborg. That's the name of the town. The place has a name. It's called like Grunwald or something like that. Schloss Grunwald.
Look, here's a rule. All good castles have a name.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't just it's not like I live at the castle at 525 Jefferson Lane. It's like I live at, Portsmouth or something. You got to have a name to it.
Yeah. So I don't know if we mentioned, but the year is 1838. So he's like, all right, you're going to sell this. We're going to make some money. There's this count over in the Carpathian Mountains.
Carpathians.
In Transylvania. And so Tom's like, all right. So we'll just get him on Zoom. We'll send some documents over email and that'll be good. And he said, no. You got to go there. So he's like, he goes back to his wife, Ellen, and she doesn't want him to go, obviously.
And there's more to Ellen, right? We didn't mention.
Yeah.
But she's dark, right? Like she tells him like this kind of dream she had.
She had this dark dream of death and she embraced it. I think she tells him this later, but
no, I think it's before he goes to, I think it's before, okay. Because she tells him about her dream, how she married death and then everybody in the audience was dead and she embraced it and he hugs her and he's like, let's not talk of this again. Like,
right.
Cause he's like, he's realizing, he's like, I don't know. I stuck my dick in crazy and now I'm stuck with her.
Right. Exactly.
But I love that line where he's like, we shan't talk of this again. He knows he's been dealing with her. She clearly is under the spell or something is going on with her.
Something. And she has the absolute perfect physical look of this character. It's great. And so he leaves her with his buddy. Frederick takes off. And it's weird.
Were you surprised?
It's like a 6-week journey, right?
Were you surprised that they made him walk and use a horse? I thought he was going to get on a boat. I thought he was going to get on maybe get an Uber. He literally fucking rides a horse all the way to fucking Transylvania.
Right. I know. It's fucking nuts.
If I lived in pre-car days and to just travel 2 towns over took 3 days, I would just kill myself. I would have killed myself. I would have been like, I'm not fucking walking for 4 days to get to North Haven. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it.
Just walk 4 days to get to North Haven so you can get, a horse there.
Yeah. No.
So it's I think sometime during this little part is where we see Knock, right, doing some sort of occult thing, like he's buck naked and sitting on a pentagram. He's got stuff around him.
He's sitting Indian style in a pentagram, buck naked with like candles, and he's like lifting one of his legs like up to his mouth or something. I don't know.
It was weird.
It's clear this guy is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And this is where we realize this is our Renfield. And he's, going on about, I'm sending him to you, master. Like, he's coming. He'll be there in like 9 weeks because he's walking there, but he'll be there anyway. So he ends up getting to the village and he runs into
the peasant village. Yeah.
The peasant villagers. What happens here, Manster?
He goes to the inn, right? Probably called Mill on the River or something like that. And, there's a bunch of peasants, and does he talk about the castle? Right. And then the inn owner's like, no, don't talk about that. Bad shit happens. And then that night they go out and they track down like a corpse that they say is a vampire corpse, and they stick a stake right through it, and it sits up straight and vomits blood.
And he sees all this.
Right.
Like, he sees all this. So... yeah, so he's like, what the F is happening here? These people are...
Do you keep going at that point? Or?
No.
You just like live a whole new life.
But well, that's what I'm saying is he's really dedicated to the idea of making her life better. He wants to be like the husband that every woman wants. But like, honestly, if that was me, if I saw them stake a creature that like vomited blood like into the air,
it was clearly dead.
Yeah, I would be like, you know what? I'm gonna write her one letter, and it's gonna be a Dear John letter. I now live in Transylvania, but on the outskirts of town. So he finally makes it to this fucking giant decrepit castle, and this is where like all the hype like builds up to. We finally get to see Count Orlok, right? We get to see this character that has in previous versions is very noticeable by being like pale white skinned, kind of like giant, like kind of bald, weird pointy ears. Yep. The fangs are usually like in the front teeth.
Right. Bucktooth fang.
So it's very much like if you've never seen Nosferatu, but you've seen Barlow from Salem's Lot, you kind of know that's the kind of vampire we're going for.
Yeah.
But that is not what we got here. And I've got to admit, I'm going to say it now. I appreciate the art and the look and the makeup of what they did here.
And the historical accuracy.
But I was disappointed when I finally got a look. Right.
You're so right. Because I remember seeing a poster of Bill Skarsgård.
That was fake.
And he had that Nosferatu look.
Yes. I remember when that came out, and that was a fake.
So and I did like the way, because it did mirror the 1922 where he walked through the gate and he sees a figure way off in the distance. And that's Nosferatu. So that was similar. It's like nearly midnight when he gets there. So I guess we could talk about his appearance, right? He's a hulking figure.
Giant.
He's skinny, but he's very tall.
He looked almost over. Like 8 feet tall. Like maybe I'm wrong, but like he was fucking big.
And am I right? Was he hooded?
Well,
was he just always looking down, so his face was always sort of shadowed?
In the first couple scenes, he's wearing a giant like fur coat. And I think in the first scene where they're sitting at the table and here's another thing about the movie. Orlok just like mentally and verbally abuses him the whole time he's there. Yeah. He is so mean. Like you think he'd be happy to see a person because A, it's like a company, and B, he could eat him afterwards. Right. But he treats Nicholas Hoult like a piece of shit the whole time. And I think when they're at the table, because they do it smartly. Like you said, you see him from far away. You barely get to see him other than his hulking size. You see that he has like wolves with him. And then when they get into the castle and they're sitting at the table, it's still very dark. But I think he was wearing, I could be wrong. I think he was wearing like a fur hat of some sort too.
I think
because, 80% of the heat you lose in your body comes out of your head. And that's true for fucking undead vampires too, apparently. So yeah, but then we start to see like hulking figure, rotting skin,
the long ass fingers where the last knuckle doesn't bend.
Yes. And that's correct to what we had before. Like we got to go to the major feature.
The major feature of this guy.
Which, as you said, I read Edgar said he did because historically that would have been accurate.
Right.
Is his giant Super Mario Brothers mustache.
Yeah, you're right.
Bam, 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 bam. Boing.
Yeah, exactly. I did not expect that. And I wouldn't say I was put off by it. I'm just like, oh, well, that's an interesting change.
Here's a problem I have with it. If you are being historically accurate, that's fine. But it seems like the hair on his head disappeared. Why would the mustache not fall off too? And I get it. You're going for something different. But I got to be honest, I would have just preferred more of like a bare face. Like, do we ever even see his fangs in the movie?
Not really. I think you just like get an appearance of like glimmering sharp teeth. That's probably about it. Nothing, no fangs, no real fangs.
So he has Nicholas Holt's character, Thomas, eventually sign some paperwork that is like in another language. And it seems to be about the deed, but in reality, Manster, what does he have him sign?
In reality, it's a divorce decree.
Yeah. Orlok.
One more thing. His voice. He trained for a long time to vocally, change his voice, and it's fucking awesome.
I saw an interview with him where he said that he did a lot of I can't remember what is it Tibetan throat singing? Have you ever heard that before?
I've never heard the term ever.
Yeah, there's actually bands that like do that where it's just like, ooh, and like this incredible fucking like deep sound, this guttural sound. And that's what his voice is like.
Yeah.
You know, I will say, if you watch Pennywise in It, you can look at it and go, I see Bill Skarsgård in there.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch this, you can't say I see Bill Skarsgård in there. He is definitely disappeared into this role. So he tricks him into signing divorce papers. At some point in the movie, but we'll get to it now, they kind of tell you, right, that like he was a wizard or a sorcerer or a fucking mage, and he had some kind of pact with evil, and he at some point reached out to Ellen, right? And like that's how the connection happened. He is the character that was ravaging her in the beginning. They make a very clear that he banged her already. Like it's gross, but like like when she was a young girl, and he has this like, you know, like Dracula has the connection with Mina. He has the same connection. Yes. And he's really like so intent on it that he wants him to give him over willingly.
It's like right away. So let's talk about Thomas a little bit. He's fucking scared as shit.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the fact that as opposed to so many other versions of Dracula, where it takes like days for Harker to be like, oh, this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
He gets there and he's like, no bueno. This is fucked. Like immediately.
And he can't get out. He's completely trapped. You know, and Orlok immediately wants to sign the papers right away. You know, Thomas is like, yeah, let's just do it in the morning. You know, I can get some rest. And then you have the whole food and the bread and the knife, you know, finger cutting scene.
Yes, he cuts himself, right.
And that's where it just takes over.
Orlok is like, oh boy, he's bleeding. I got to get some of this.
Yeah.
Eventually,
he's not shy about it.
I know it comes in a little bit, but I do want to talk about, and I think this is one of the cooler parts of the differences to the mechanics of the Dracula story or vampire stories, as you kind of said, was when he does finally attack Hutter and he drinks from him. It's not from the neck. It's directly from the fucking heart.
How the fuck do you bite someone's chest?
I like
that snake jaw, you know.
I honestly was thinking about what would be worse, getting bitten on the neck and have blood sucked from you from there, or through your breastplate into your heart. Right. And I honestly think it's more terrifying through the heart. Like Orlok does kill a few people by biting on the neck in this movie, but he doesn't really drink from them there. Anytime he drinks, we see it. It's only a couple times. It goes through the fucking chest. And then that one scene where you had kind of mentioned that it's very sexual is where he's drinking from Thomas, and it's a long shot of him on top of him, and you hear the gulping sounds, and his like hips are. It's like
he's swaying.
It's like when my dog Echo gets humpy. He starts, his bottom starts to go, and he just gets into it. He doesn't even know what the fuck he's doing. He just starts swaying his hips. So eventually, Thomas wakes up the next day. He gets through this. He finds Orlok's what do you want to call it? Coffin, right?
Yeah.
And attempts to kill him, but that goes awry. And then to save himself, what does he do? How does he get away from this situation?
Oh shit! This might be one of the places.
He jumps off.
He jumps into the river?
He jumps into the river off of the like the top rope of the castle. Yeah.
Before this, he wanted to leave, and Orlok insisted that he stayed.
He tells me I've been playing with terrible dreams, and I'd like to go home. And Orlok's like, you can't go home in a state of, you know, you're not feeling good. You got to be like let's get up in the morning. Let's get our vitamins in. Let's have a small run around the neighborhood, and then you can
some
go
blood
home.
Vitamins.
I'll give you some blood vitamins. I'll massage you a little bit. But he jumps into the river ends up on the banks of the, I don't know, whatever river that is. And he eventually gets found.
And this is where I fell asleep a little bit. So
okay.
I didn't see the whole nun scene.
Okay. So we can't talk about this at all because you fell asleep through the nun scene and I went to the bathroom through the nun scene. So here, let's just make it up. Here's what I think happened from what I understood. The nun finds him. They drag him back to the nunnery. And maybe they know about Orlok. This is the first time maybe ever on our show where we have to make up a part of a movie. They bring him back to the nunnery and they know about Dracula and they know how to maybe revive him.
And
maybe,
you want to, you know what? It's kind of like Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
He has to bang every nun.
He has to bang all the nuns.
He bangs every nun. He gets every nun pregnant. And then once they determine all the nuns are pregnant, he's allowed to leave. So we'll go with that.
So that's what happened.
When we get back to Germany, Ellen is slowly getting worse. She's driving Friedrich nuts, but Lucy or that character there, Anna, is like, she's my friend. They've got 2 kids, by the way. We didn't mention that. They got 2 little kids because that's going to be important in a little while.
Very important soon.
Things are getting worse. The doctor tells the Aaron Taylor Johnson character that I know a guy who was my teacher back in the day, my Yoda, as you would, who was kicked out of like medicine because he's kind of like a kook bag. He believes in things that are not necessarily of this earth. And the reason, conventional. And the reason they feel this way is because there's a very cool kind of akin scene to The Exorcist. Ellen like does like a fucking upside down handstand and starts like fucking like speaking in tongues and shit. Right. So they go Manster and they find Willem Dafoe's character, he's just been sitting in his room for years, right?
Yeah. And he's just been studying, the Nosferatu, which is another cool, because the term, like, he is the Nosferatu, which is, I guess, a vampire, old decrepit vampire, I guess. Not necessarily his name. And yeah, so he looks into this whole plague-bearing vampire thing and kind of figures out, what's going on. He's pretty quick.
Yeah. And
he's so, verbose about it. He kind of almost like takes over a little bit. He's kind of, I wouldn't say overacting, but he's very out there.
He is. It feels like he's in a different movie to an extent.
Right.
Because up until this point, everybody in this movie is so serious and dour. Everybody is so serious and dour that when you get to the scene where they meet Von Franz, he just seems like kind of like, oh, he's happy to just be involved, right?
Yep.
So he starts to work on this with her. He starts to go see Ellen and try to figure out things. Meanwhile,
Knock.
Yeah.
And Orlok is, go ahead.
Yeah, they got a whole thing where they're communing, and Orlok knows that Hutter, I don't think he knows he survived, but he now knows he's got to go to Germany to go collect his bride. So in the middle, we get a little bit of the last voyage of the Demeter scene, where it's the ship going from Transylvania to Germany. And we get a quick scene where it's very clear that the crew is starting to die off because they find like just thousands of rats everywhere.
So plague-filled rats in the burial dirt, which is in his sarcophagus. Was there just one? I don't remember.
He just had the one.
Okay, so in the original Nosferatu, cool scene where Thomas is up in the castle looking out because he can't escape. He can't get out, and he sees Orlok just manhandling like 6 coffins filled with dirt, just lifting them right up, throwing them on a cart. We don't get that in this movie, but that was a fun scene. I really stuck in my head from back in the day.
So the boat ends up crashing into, because the crew's all dead. Boat ends up crashing into the port. The doctor comes and shows Friedrich that this has happened, and they become very aware that there are now rats infesting the city, plague rats. So this becomes a whole secondary subplot of the movie, is that Nosferatu has shown up. People don't know that. Orlok is there, but they don't know that necessarily that, although Von Franz does tell these folks here, he's here. But also the plague is now sweeping through this town. People are dying left and right. And then Thomas shows up again, right? Thomas shows up oh shit, this dude's alive. They thought that something was very wrong because, as Manster joked before, she expected him to write every day. I can't imagine writing somebody once every 3 weeks.
I can't even manage a text once a day.
Yeah, texting somebody once a day.
So make it easy.
I can manage that. But if you're you got to text me 5 times today, I'd be I can't do that. I'm sorry. I just can't. I'm not going to be able to remember that. But he's writing full on fucking letters. And not just that, but with old style quills and in that fucking, hoity toity language. My dearest.
Yeah, you need an inkwell. You need parchment.
So much going on.
You need a wax stamp.
No. Oh, I do love wax stamps though. I wish I had a wax stamp. So this is all happening. The town is starting to become torn apart by the plague, and they're starting to put together their machinations on how to fight Count Orlok. Renfield, Aronach, has been captured and put in an insane asylum. Right. We get a pretty dope scene of him eating a pigeon's head.
Yeah, that was good.
The effect was really good how they did it, where, you know, kind of he rips it off, and it looked pretty real.
It looked so real. Yeah. I mean, I think the bird was off screen for like a millisecond.
Yes.
And so whatever he took a bite of wasn't obviously not a real bird, but
let's hope not.
Yeah.
Let's hope not.
He's no Ozzy.
No, definitely not. So eventually
he escapes.
He does escape. He gets out and he ends up rescuing Orlok from the boat crash, right? And he brings him. He's in like in the river with a gondola or something, and he brings him back to his purchased castle, decrepit castle, and eventually, Manster, Orlok comes to Ellen, right? And he tells her she's got 3 nights. Is this in a
dream? I think it's in a dream. This is where I got a little confused.
Yeah, I was awake for this, but I was 100% confused by what was happening.
So I'm pretty sure he comes to her in a dream, and yes, so they meet in the dream, and he says, "You have 3 nights to, was it not kill, just disassociate from Thomas
to finalize the divorce." I think.
Yeah, finalize the divorce. And then just be with him.
And if you don't, things are going to get worse, which eventually ends up on the second night. Like he horrifyingly kills those kids.
To Frederick's family and clearly kills the 2 children. I think kills the wife too, but I don't think you see that right away, because the very next scene after he goes to their house is the townfolk or whoever pulling out these 2 mini coffins.
Yeah, tiny coffins.
I always hate to see that.
So, okay, so here's the scene where I want to say that I drifted through 2 parts of this movie. I drifted asleep apparently during this scene because I don't remember any of it, and I'll talk about that 1 second. And then at the end, when they go to the catacombs and they find Renfield Aronach in the coffin, when they're looking for him, I was kind of in and out then, but then I woke up fully for the end.
It's a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap.
It's a decoy anyway.
So the scene that I read on Wikipedia that I thought was fake because I didn't remember was when Aaron Taylor Johnson apparently has sex with his dead wife.
Okay, yeah. So this is when I went to the bathroom during this lead up. They were pulling out the kids' coffins. That's when I went to the bathroom. Then I came back and he was in that mausoleum, opening his wife's coffin and fucking her.
Okay,
necrophiliac, by the way.
Completely missed that. I did wake up in time to see him die because he has the plague.
Right. So apparently he got the plague from fucking his dead wife.
Okay. So I missed all that. So then after that, now here's another scene. I think that was kind of like said when I was out a little bit, but isn't it told that Hutter knows that the only way to defeat Orlok is that Ellen has to give herself to him totally, right?
All right. So I don't remember if Hutter knows that, but maybe that was all part of the interaction. But Von Hels, what is it?
Von Franz.
Von Franz. He certainly knows it. He's read some old books and he saw the picture, the naked lady in bed with a vampire, and it clearly says that the maiden must invite the vampire into her chamber and sacrifice her blood in order to end the plague of the vampire.
Right.
So he knows he's going to do that. I don't think Thomas knows that's the plan, but he also goes to Ellen at one point. And I guess just to verify that whole plan or something.
All right. Ellen knows, but Thomas does not know.
Right.
They try to fool Thomas into thinking that he's going to have a chance, right, to end this, but they know the real thing that's going to happen. And that's when they go into the catacombs.
That's when they go to the castle or whatever that house is.
Right. And then they find
Blessinger. Schloss Gunwald.
Schloss Gunwald. And then they find Renfield / Aronach.
Right. Aronach is in the coffin. They do. Yeah, they stake him.
Okay, so they kill him.
And burn it.
And now it's kind of come down to, I do also want to mention, I feel like you have to mention it, the scene I thought was really good with Lily Rose Depp. She was pretty good in it, where she has that fit. This is before this, by the way, but she has that fit where she's like drooling, and then she goads him into fucking her to death on that, on that piece of old timey furniture.
Yeah.
Where she starts pulling her shirt down around. Like I will give her credit. She plays someone that's like kind of like otherworldly and unhinged very well.
Yeah, unhinged, otherworldly, vulnerable, strong, like a lot of things going on there.
And Nicholas Holt's a good looking dude. He's so good looking. I just felt like even in 1838 in his head, he's got to be like, there's got to be at least some tavern wench that'll have me. You know, like he really, you got to give his character credit because he loves her.
Yeah, he loves her. Yeah, he doesn't look like he's going to go without.
Yeah, no. I mean, no dude in 1838 looked like him or Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Right.
They had all their teeth. They had good bone structure. Even without the plague, those guys would have like scurvy or some shit. They would have like one eye would be not working correctly. Something is happening back in those days.
Yeah.
Even with attending physicians out there. All right, Manster, why don't you set us up for the sacrifice in the final scene?
So while they realize all of a sudden, that it's a diversion, and then so they rush back to their apartment. But in the meantime, Orlok is already there, and you get the fantastic visual of him creeping up the stairs, the shadow of the vampire creeping up the stairs. Not exactly the same as in the original, but very similar. And then you also get that one where he's going into the room and his hand goes, and then his shadow unlocks the door.
Yeah.
A lot of really, really cool shadowy stuff. We didn't really mention a lot of that. Even the hand going over the city.
That was ruined in the trailer. They showed that in the trailer a lot, but the idea of him being in his castle, reaching out to her, and then the hand shadow going across the city, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah. So back in the chamber, she allows him to come and feast on her, and penetrate her.
Yeah.
And you get some serious, like, old, decrepit vampire fucking a beautiful young girl.
Yeah, he's
woman.
He's biting on her. He's fucking her. A whole lot happening. Now, here's a question that I don't know the answer to, Master. Does the act of her sacrificing herself kill him, or is it the sunlight?
I guess that's the actual thing, but I think it's a combination of her sacrifice and the sun.
Dracula comes, the morning comes, he dies. It's all, all in one shot. Yeah.
And then she does survive long enough for Thomas to see her. And then she's exsanguinated. So she's really got nothing left in her. And that's it. And he doesn't, they didn't do all those, like I said before, the vampire tropes. He doesn't burn up, but he does seem to wither unless we've never seen his actual legs, but his legs are like tiny little fucking skinny ass legs. Right?
It almost looked like he turned to stone, or like, like he hardened. His dick was already rock hard, but now the rest of him was rock hard too. Yeah. And that's it. Like, that's how the movie ends, where she's sacrificed herself, and Thomas is now like, well, that was a whole lot of shit for nothing, I guess, in the end.
Yeah, it's just over, and the movie, I think, ends with seeing them in an embrace, right?
Yeah. And I guess
that's rough.
The plague has ravaged half of their country. Nothing really good came of the end of this movie, but we'll talk about that in our ratings. All right, let's get into the box office.
This country, you got to make the money first.
All right, so as Manster said, this came out on Christmas Day last year, we can now say. Week ending 12/29/24. This movie had a $50 million budget. Here are the top 5 films of that weekend. Number 5, it had been out for 5 weeks. It made $18.2 million, Moana 2. Number 4, out for 6 weeks, $19.5 million, Wicked. I have no interest in Wicked, but I did notice the other day when I was looking at Movie Times that they're doing that thing they do in the last couple of years with like musical movies, where now they have Wicked sing-along
they have
showings.
Nights, yeah.
Yeah, so you can go and you can...
I saw Wicked, the stage production, years ago.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. I don't think I would see the movie. I might watch it when it comes streaming, but...
Yeah. And it's also one of those movies that they kind of fuck you with, where it's only part 1 of 2, and it's like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Wizard of Oz. Like, my mother, it was her favorite movie, and I watch it with her a lot, and I understand the importance of it, but I just, it doesn't grab me. Opening at number 3, $21.1 million, Nosferatu. So it did not hit number 1, but that, it's a niche horror movie. Number 2, it had been out for 2 weeks, $37.1 million. And I knew this was coming out. I thought it was coming out early this year. It's already been out for a couple weeks. Mufasa, The Lion King. It's the live action Lion King prequel. I didn't realize it was
any
out.
interest in that?
Not really. I haven't seen the cartoon in many years, and I never saw the live action one. And number one, out for 2 weeks, kicking total ass at $38 million. I'm interested in watching these.
I don't get it. I don't know.
I've heard, everybody I know who watches these movies say that they're actually really good. It's Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Jim Carrey plays Dr. Robotnik, who has a mustache like Nosferatu.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Keep hearing that they're pretty fun kind of family movies. So maybe at some point we'll check them out. All right. That's your box office. Let's rate this thing.
That guy who spent 6 weeks in the bathroom got a 91.
0 to 5, 0 being the worst thing ever, 5 being the very best thing ever. Quarter and half scale optional. I'll go first. I enjoyed this movie, but I did not love this movie. This is a movie that kind of fell victim to the hype train a little bit. You know, it came out in Christmas, so you had all year to think about it, and I was very curious about it. I'm not like a Robert Eggers stan. I think he has a great aesthetic look, and I think he makes weird movies that he wants to make, and I appreciate that. Never having seen the first two Nosferatus, I can't compare it to those. I was disappointed by the look of Count Orlok, but I didn't think it was bad. You know, it was a very good creature design, but I was kind of hoping more for that sweaty ass looking pointy eared goblin motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, I was hoping more for the goblin motherfucker instead of like fucking, I don't know,
nobleman,
super Nosferatu brothers. But I did enjoy this movie. I will freely admit that falling asleep during a couple of key scenes kind of fucked it up a little bit for me. So I have to take that into account. But I also got to say, there were things that I was wide awake for that I did not fully understand what was happening. Like, I didn't know when he was signing that decree that it was a divorce thing. Like, I didn't know the scene where he came to her and said, you know, you have 2 nights. I didn't know what he meant by you have 2 nights. I feel like I just maybe was missing some of the dialogue through the heavy voices and the, you know, some of the accents and stuff. I don't know. But so I can't blame it on that. Now, in full disclosure, if you listen to The Pint, you might listen to guest shots and stuff. And I did this last week on So Wizard podcast. So we didn't walk through the plot there, but we talked about our likes and dislikes. So I will recommend you go check that out as well if you haven't already. On that, they also do a 5 scale, and I gave it a 3. Thinking about it more and talking about it more, I'm going to raise that a little bit, but not much. I'm going to go with a 3.25. I definitely think that this movie deserves my attention a second time. I'm not going to go see it in the theaters again. This will be out on Blu-ray in February, probably. I'll buy it because I'm a physical media guy, and also I like this movie enough to want to see like behind the scenes stuff and more of that. But I'm going to go with a 3.25. Really good atmospherically, looks great. It's a horror movie, but it's not scary, right? Like, I was hoping for some like real terror. There are some moments like him killing a little kid, even though it's kind of in shadow. That's horrifying, but there wasn't enough there to like make me go, oh man, that's like one of the best horror movies of the year period, let alone movies of the year period. So 3.25, Manster. What do you give it?
Well, I think it's clear I'll probably go higher than you.
I knew there was no way. That's why I went first. I was giving you time to think if this really is a 5 or not.
No, I'm not giving it a 5. It's not your typical bloody, hissing vampire jump scare movies. There's no fountains of blood, you know, but it's a visually stunning, creepy, really good aesthetic, gothic atmosphere. There's a total sense of dread that just flows over the movie. You got themes of like isolation and obsession and desire that really drive the story. And I think this particular retelling adds like historical detail and depth to the story and the relationships, because they didn't have, like in the original, you didn't have that bond that was already there between Orlok and Ellen. It just came about because he saw her picture in a locket. The production, every aspect of the production of this movie is fantastic. The cinematography, the costume, the sound design. I think if you go back and listen to it and like really listen for those things and to the musical score, you'll really notice how much it enhances the film. And it's just all just comes together really well. I love the soundtrack. I've already added it to my download list of, movie stuff. Skarsgård, he's awesome in this. I'm sorry. He put in, he lost, I had my notes up higher. I think he lost like 60 pounds. He lost a lot of weight.
How does that dude lose 60 pounds?
I don't know. Let me go back and check. Hold on. That was just out of memory. And you know my memory. I can't find it. Anyway, I got a lot of shit to look through. But he did fantastic. His vocal, his visual, he totally embodies like this monstrous vampire. He even said himself, I've hit the limit to my capacity of playing evil. He's like, I'm never want to play something this evil again. Which I think that's a good testament to, I think, the writing and the character. Like you said, Lily Rose Depp, she does really well. She brings a lot to the character, the vulnerability, the strength, and even visually, she's unhinged. And like I said, this connection that was added, I think adds complexity to the story that wasn't in the original. Not to mention the original is a silent movie.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot you can get from it. You have to read it and you have to see the expressions which they do a great job of in the original. I think it's a haunting, stunning, weirdly romantic, movie. Has that deliberate pacing that, if you're out there looking for a bloody vampire flick, this is not it. But if you want something that will be a little thought provoking and a little deeper, this is a great artistic horror movie. That's terrifying, dreadful, and worth your time. I'm going to give it and some of this is because I really wanted Orlok to look different. But he doesn't, but that's fine. 4.25.
All right. So clearly you think this is better than The Lost Boys.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Little joke if you don't know. Master hates The Lost Boys. Yeah. Hates The Lost Boys. All right. Well, that's 2024's Nosferatu. Maybe I'll get a copy of the original and we'll do that. We've never done a silent film before. That could be interesting.
That's true.
Maybe we'll do that over on the Patreon. But
what's the oldest one we did? Probably Dracula?
Yeah, Dracula. Yeah, the original Universal Dracula is probably the oldest film we've ever done.
31, maybe?
31. Absolutely. Yep. All right. So this has been The Pint. You know where to find us over on Instagram at The Pint Pop, over on Patreon, Patreon.com/The Pint. And we have the $2.50 tier and we have the $4 tier. The $4 tier, we're going to be doing something very exciting. Master, did I tell you about this yet? So here's what happened. I wrote it up on the Patreon on my Happy New Year's post.
I saw that.
After I posted the Happy New Year's post, I realized that nothing that I wrote under the picture of Happy New Year's actually posted. So what I wrote, so people will be hearing this, they might be hearing it for the first or second time, because I think I mentioned it on the first episode too, is we're going to be doing live streams, Stu, myself, and I wrote initially, hopefully Master will join, and Larry as well. We're going to be doing all the Rocky films.
Yep.
We're going to go through and we're going to do all the Rocky films, including the Creed films. So that's 9 movies. So it'll take probably about 4 to 7 years. Creed 3 coming at you in 2097. But yeah, we're going to be doing that. So that should be a lot of fun. So, get out. The movie's out now. We both agree that it's definitely worth checking out on the big screen. Nosferatu 2024. And, until next time, Master, I guess say the words, right?
Hey, I can't do it. I got to do that throat thing. See ya.
Yeah. See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over!
Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!